Why aren't you responding to my texts? Did I say something wrong? What could he be upset about? Do you often have thoughts like these? Many people find themselves thinking too much for a variety of reasons. In this video, I'm going to talk about realistic solutions to overthinking. It's going to be very informative, so make sure to watch until the end. Overthinking, ruminating, or whatever you want to call it, is the act of thinking irrationally and repetitively about a problem. And we often try to excuse our emotional insanity. We present rational facts about the situation we're overthinking, but this only makes our overthinking worse. Here's what happens when you overthink a problem. You get tired of focusing on a particular situation or mental process because you don't have the time or energy to focus on other things in your life. Someone has a health issue where you overthink what they're saying. This lack of focus then affects other aspects of your life. Overthinking has been a popular topic for so long that there are even proverbs about it. Our brains cycle through different situations and try to alleviate worry by predicting what will happen next. And yes, there's a big hint here. We predict things that won't happen to alleviate worry. This is especially common in perfectionists, high achievers, and people who have high expectations of themselves. These are the people who overthink others' reactions to their behavior. They constantly need structure. They always wonder what will happen next and despise the unknown. Because they don't believe they can excel in the face of uncertainty, overthinking clouds their minds and makes them angry. So they continue to live in a state of overthinking. It's important to find strategies to deal with overthinking so that it doesn't become a habit. When you're always running full speed ahead to succeed, it becomes increasingly difficult to appreciate life, which naturally leads to unhappiness and suffering. Let me give you a couple examples of overthinking that a close friend of mine experienced. When my friend was younger, if he entered a room or bumped into someone, he always thought that the other person would be intimidated by his height. So when he was younger, he subconsciously tried not to walk too straight, and he subconsciously thought, "I'm not like everyone else," and he tried not to make his presence felt. I didn't want to intimidate the people around me. So I always did that, even in social situations. Then I went to college and worked in a computer store. One day, a friend of mine was working in the store and a coworker he was working with came up to him and said, "Hey, I think you own this place." It happened so quickly that we all know it was a common joke, but he says he was taken aback for a moment. He says he thought, maybe I'm standing too upright and that's why it looks like that. His uncertainty was being compounded by his confidence in the way he walked. As I watched my friend, I realized in a big way that I was thinking just as much as he was. When I realized this, I began to wonder if I was thinking too much, not only about what others thought of me, but also about the actions I should take. Now, I don't claim to not think a lot, but I am quick to recognize myself. I now know a lot about the mind. Now let's talk about some solutions. The first way to dramatically reduce overthinking is to start enjoying uncertainty. You might think this is a strange thing to say. Life is full of uncertainty, so you need to get used to the unknown. Any number of events can happen at any given time. To get comfortable with uncertainty, plan your day less, do different things, try new things, and do things that challenge you. As you do, you'll start to get comfortable with the unknown. Next, reduce your dependence on outcomes by becoming less outcome-oriented. This doesn't just mean spiritually detaching from things and events, it means spiritually detaching from what you want. Paradoxically, we want things to happen, but it's okay if they don't, and it's okay to mentally prepare for things that don't happen. In fact, many times when we want to accomplish something in life, it's okay to disconnect from it. In this way, we may not be swayed by it at all. Then, learn to be grateful for your failures and mistakes. Failure can teach us many valuable lessons. I'm sure there are things you failed at in the past, and you can look back on those failures with gratitude because they made you who you are today. Failure helps build character. Character development is so important. In today's culture, people don't seem to be mature because they don't fail enough. They don't face enough adversity to build character and commitment. As a result, they remain static, but when they embrace failure, they start to evolve like crazy. If I hadn't embraced failure, I wouldn't have this YouTube channel. I wouldn't have a business, and I certainly wouldn't have the financial power to support myself. Failure teaches you humility and helps you manage your ego. Failure is a good thing in life if you're serious about moving forward. In an ideal world, you'd achieve great things but never rest on your laurels. Get into this positive cycle of life. Failure also helps you appreciate your accomplishments more. We have one amazing ability. It's that when we experience one thing, we are able to value the experience on the other side even more. If you had asked me 20 years ago how to build a business, I would have said that I needed more time, but if you asked me now, it would be different because I've learned from a lot of failures over the course of 20 years. I'm not afraid to fail anymore because I've learned so much along the way. The next step is to identify your triggers. You might say something like, "I'm stressed and worried, so I overthink." The next question is how much it has to do with your ego. Overthinking is not conducive to maintaining a self-created ego. For example, athletes think too much because they have this identity that they're a great athlete, so they feel compelled to not make mistakes in games, to not let people down at every moment. But the irony is that having the mindset that it's okay to have a bad game allows you to have a better game because you're not resisting your ego. It's easy to understand if we think back to when we were kids. It's like kids are just going with the flow and having fun without thinking too much about it. You have to decide how much overthinking has to do with your ego. Maybe it's because you have a high-achieving persona, but that's just that. Even high achievers need to take a break from time to time. Then reframe your overthinking. Reframing means looking at things from a different perspective. For example, you might think, "I consider myself an overachiever, so I'm doing this to protect my ego." But if you're just observing and not judging, "I'm doing this because I think of myself as X or Y," you're not always going to be able to maintain that identity because no matter what identity you take on, there are nuances in life. For example, think about the CEO of a company. They are the CEO. When they're at work, they represent the company. But when they're not working, they have to take care of themselves or maybe their family. There are things that happen outside of the CEO persona, but we take that identity as if it's all there is. CEOs are just regular people. They don't have one identity, and they do a lot of different things throughout their lives. Here's a person who is an expert in sociology. Let's say this person wants to study karate. This person is not a karate master. They're a beginner, learning like a student, but they're a sociology expert. What's the point? He's learning karate. There are nuances of life because it's a completely different discipline. They are doing different activities. When we overthink things, it's usually because we're holding onto an identity that we need to let go of. Maybe you're not the best at certain aspects of your life. Let go of the need to be the best. No one can force you to be. Your identity should only come from your choices, and no one can interfere with that. When we think about an experience, it often feels more real if we add an emotional component to it. This is how the mind and body interact. When you add an emotional component to a concept, it makes the concept more serious. The body takes it more seriously. But when we meditate, we close our eyes and simply observe our feelings and thoughts and feel about them without judgment. We don't evaluate ourselves, we just experience and witness. Surprisingly, we begin to slow down. As we do this, our mind slowly begins to calm down. Once the mind is calm, we suggest a guided meditation. The effect of the meditation is amazing. You can easily find instructions on how to meditate on YouTube. I prefer to meditate because when I'm thinking, my brain waves speed up tremendously. This is called a beta brainwave pattern in neuroscience. Beta brainwaves are very fast. They happen when we're digesting something, when we're having a conversation, when we're taking action. But there's also alpha brain waves, which are slower. And alpha is a really peaceful meditative state. There are fewer fast-moving ideas, and the mood is quieter and calmer. In an alpha state, you can actually see things more logically because there's less noise in your head. I recommend experiencing meditation because it can truly slow down your brain and make it more open. Next, relax for the worst-case scenario. The truth is, the chances of that happening are slim to none. The worst-case scenarios you imagine are very unlikely to actually happen. I can attest to the fact that what you thought was going to happen a month ago didn't happen. That didn't happen. But do you know what happens when something you overthink does happen? It's probably not as terrible as you imagined. And even if it is as terrible as we imagined, we'll be able to adapt. In other words, you'll get used to it. And that will be your new growth. In any case, the important thing is that it has become your new reality. It has happened, and you can get used to it. So it doesn't really matter how you feel. Even if the worst-case scenario happens, which is unlikely, even if it does happen, things will get better. The faith you need when faced with certain situations is faith in yourself, faith that you can get back up and get things done, and faith in the universe to see you through. The universe is perfect and reliable, and that's very important in a worst-case scenario. A lot of these situations are mental games. If you think you're overthinking, pause and say, "Yeah, I'm overthinking, let's not overthink." It will definitely get better. It's important to observe your thoughts carefully and not overthink them. Observe your thoughts carefully and don't beat yourself up for thinking too much. We often make too many judgments. Make fewer unnecessary decisions. Judge yourself and others less in life, and you'll be much happier. Trust me. Less judgment means less neurotic emotional projection or thinking. Most of the judgments we make are negative. I should have done this. Why am I doing this? Stop judging right now. You have to bring yourself back to consciousness. You need to watch yourself. And you need to watch what you say unconsciously. A lot of us don't pay attention to what we say. We think words are just strings of letters and that's how we communicate. But they aren't. Words have a deeper meaning than just words. Words have energy. Words have impact. When certain words are directed at something, they have a direct impact on that thing. Words have conduits that connect to the entire universe. That's why they have the potential to affect the mind and disrupt emotional circuits. As you can see, the power of words can have a wide range of consequences for humans. This is a really important issue. Another unique feature is that you can communicate with yourself, similar to self-questioning. If you're overthinking something, try talking to yourself first. It's okay to talk out loud, so do that. Be honest with yourself and pour it all out. This is similar to how you communicate with the universe. It's connecting with the universe, and it brings about a beautiful self-integration because you're in tune with yourself. Your ego already knows so much about you. There is nothing you don't know about yourself. In closing, I want to say this. Good things will happen, it will get better and better, and nothing you overthink will hold you back. Life is your own drama, and we all have the right to be the main character.